This is Wabash Carnegie Public Library, Oral History Program, interviewing George McNeeley at the Wabash Carnegie Public Library, Wednesday, May 23rd, 1973. Well, George, the first question I'm going to ask you is where and when you were born?
Well, I was born down in the southern part of Illinois on October the 8th, 1906.
And what was your father's full name?
My father's name was Amicy Marble McNeeley.
How did he get such an unusual first name?
I don't know. Well, my grandfather was dead before I was big enough to know anything about it, so I don't know how he got that name.
And what was your mother's maiden name?
My mother's maiden name was Rose Lee Taylor.
And were they both from Illinois or southern Illinois?
My father was born in the southern part of Indiana, down around Vincennes, and then he moved over to the southern part of Illinois when he was just a kid.
What was his occupation?
He was a farmer.
And so you actually grew up on a farm there?
I grew up on a farm until I was about 10, 11 years old like that. We moved to Wabash then.
And what brought them to Wabash?
Well, near as I can remember, we had a real wet spring, and my father was a farmer. We had a real wet spring, and wasn't able to get any crops out, so he just decided he'd sell out and move to town, and I had an uncle that lived up here at that time, so he moved up here where my uncle was, his brother.
Who would that have been?
That would have been John David McNeeley, which he was known as Dave around here.
What did he do?
He was just a factory worker. He worked at 3 different places, and then he dabbled a little bit in real estate on the side.
Well, what would be your earliest remembrances then coming to Wabash as a young boy?
Well, I remember we came to Wabash. Of course, there was no automobiles in those days, and we came up by train. We came from down around McLeansboro, Illinois, and we came up to Danville. Then we had to change trains there, and I remember we had quite a wait over there in the depot at Danville before we could catch a train over to Wabash.
How many were in the family besides your mother and father?
Well, we had there was 3 girls and 3 boys. There were 6 of us, besides my mother and my father.
That must have been a big move when you look back now.
That was quite an excursion for us kids, especially, because we'd never ridden on a train before.
How old had you been then, George? About
11, 12, somewhere along in there.
And when you came to Wabash, then where did you move to?
We moved out in out on North Wabash Street. My father and my uncle together bought a house out there, and we lived there until I was a grown man, until I grew up out there.
Now, North Wabash Street, how far out? Do you remember the number?
1300 block.
1300. And then did you enter school?
Yeah.
Where?
Over at the old Century School.
And go on from there to high school?
Well, about a year and a half to high school. That's as far as I could get. I had to quit so the teachers could catch up.
What was the reason that you quit high school?
Well, it was financially more than anything else. I just couldn't afford to go. And then I had a job. I got a job over at the south side, over at the old Spencer Cardinal Company, so I quit school and went to work.
You would have been 16 or
About
so? 16,
back along in there.
Of course, there were no child labor laws or anything back in those days.
Well, yeah, there was to a certain extent. You had to be 16 before you could get a job any place then.
Well, then when you went to work Spencer Cardinal, what did you do as a young man, and how long did you stay there?
Well, I stayed there. It must have been possibly a year or so, something like that, maybe something like that. I don't remember it exactly. That's been a long time ago.
And then what did you do?
Well, I worked over at the old, there's an old canning factory over on the south side then, where Dio's Machine Works is now. There used to be a canning factory in there. I worked there, occasionally, off and on, at 2 or 3 different times.
And then how did you drift over to Honeywell to go to work?
Well, I was working back over to Spencer Cardinal then, and I don't know, one noon hour, I just happened to decide that I knew they were pretty busy at Honeywell at that time, so I came over and I talked to Mr. Kenneth Roby, and he wanted me to go to work that afternoon. That was one noon hour. He wanted me to go to work that afternoon. But I told him, no, I wouldn't go work that afternoon. I must go back over and tell people I'm going to quit. So I got 2 days out of him, I think, by doing that. I mean, I went back over and told the people I would quit, and I worked till the end of the week before I quit over there. So that time I wouldn't quit them dirty.
Yeah. What year would that have been, George?
Gee, 1926 or 27, somewhere along in there. 26, I expect it was.
Had the merger taken place yet? And
No,
that was
merger hadn't taken place
before the merger.
No.
Yeah. And you decided that Mr. Roby's offer was a good one, so you went to work for Honeywell, where
Then I came over and went to work for Honeywell, yeah.
ultimately you spent the rest of your working
I
career.
spent the rest of my time with Honeywell.
Yeah. Did you know that when you started at Honeywell that you would make that your lifelong career?
No, it was only a temporary job.
Yeah.
Just for the summer.
And what was your job then? What was
I was in an assembly department
Mhm.
at that time.
What were they making?
Well, it was what we called an old master stat, which was a boiler control. Had a bulb that went into the boiler and controlled the temperature of a hot water boiler.
Was that the only thing they were making then?
That was the only thing we made in that department. No, they made a variety of different items, and thermostats and motors and stack controls, and gee, I don't know what all they did make. We made a variety of different items at that time.
What was your specific job?
I was in the assembly department. I just assembled the units. Then after I was there, possibly 3 or 4 weeks, I became one of the test operators. I tested all of them. It was sort of an inspection job, of testing and adjusting them.
Was this a fairly sophisticated test, or?
Yes, it was, because they were all the bulbs were all put in hot water, and the temperature was brought to a certain degree. We set the control to that degree, and they were pretty close.
Do you remember seeing Mr. Honeywell back in those days?
I don't remember too much of him in those days, no. I probably knew who he was, but I don't remember too much about him. Because I was way down on the main plant there, way up on the 3rd floor, and I don't think he came up through there very much. I don't remember much about him yet.
Do you remember how much they paid you for that first job?
Well, I think the first job was 35 cents an hour.
35 cents an hour.
Yeah, when I first started. That was my first, because I came over here because I got about a nickel, or I think it was a nickel more on the hour by coming over to Honeywell. So I quit over there and came over here because I'm making more money.
Yeah. Did they have any formal hiring procedure? Did you have to fill out an application, or?
No.
Yeah. You just
They
went
did
to.
my name and address down, and that was it.
Yeah. Of course, back in those days, there were no deductions or anything.
No, you got to keep everything you made.
Yeah. Who was the boss in this?
Jim Weiss was the boss in that department when I went to work there.
And incidentally, we've done Jim Weiss.
Have you?
Yes, on the foundry, and he and his brother, and all the ramifications of buying it and so forth, and starting the business themselves. Who were some of your fellow workers that you remember?
Well, Carl Schwab worked there at that time. He was in the department where I went to work. I don't believe he was there at that time, though, but he did come in later. Oh, there was a guy by the name of Bowlby, Bowlby, I remember his first name. There was some guy by the name of Albert, Shorty Albert, Herman Albert. You probably have heard somebody say something about him, so
I knew him.
he was in that department. And of course Jim Weiss, and a guy by the name of Bowles. And there were several women in there. The only one woman I remember was one of them was a girl by the name of Helen Weaver, because I'd gone to school with her. There was another girl by the name of Lehman worked there.
All of you stayed in that department for how long then?
Oh, I don't know. Must have been Up until after the merger, and that was in 29, wasn't it? 29 or 30, somewhere along in there.
It's around that era there sometime. What do you remember? Do you remember anything about the merger? Rumors in the shop? Or?
Oh yeah, the rumors were there wouldn't be more Honeywells here at all.
Yeah.
And but we all believed it. I mean, and you're bound to believe rumors like that. If you're working in a place, you believe them until they're proven differently. We believed them.
Yeah. You thought that after the
After so long a time, we figured after so long a time we wouldn't have any job.
Yeah. Of course, you weren't married then, so
No.
it wasn't too much of a concern.
No.
You're a single man. Well, then, how did your career? Here we are, getting ready for the merger, and did you notice any change after the merger?
Well, yeah, after the merger, then they did start shipping different departments out and closing down different departments. I think at that time there was, when the merger came, there must have been four plants at least.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they started drawing them in little by little.
Mm-hmm.
You know, during that time, I know they moved our department. We were down on Canal Street then, or not, on Miami, South Miami Street, where Ollie Brown has that tire shop now. That was the building we were in.
Uh-huh.
And when they started moving around, I moved all around. I worked in several different departments. I worked in the maintenance department for a while. I was just a little bit of a kid, but I still was working in maintenance department.
But other than the rumors, why, you had no fact really to base anything on.
No, nothing at all. And then after the merger was complete, I know I came back up to the main plant then, because they'd closed the Miami Street plant down. I came back up to the main plant and went up on the third floor again in the service department. Of course, I was there for possibly a year or maybe 2 years. And then they moved that out. That was when about a dozen of us guys got in a little bad trouble.
What happened?
There was a filling station set out back of the plant there, right where Farm Bureau office is there now, where the lumber yard is. There was
On
a
South Miami,
filling station right in there. And we got to shooting screws through a copper tube with an air hose. We'd shoot screws down and hit that filling station. Well, the man down there to run the filling station, he went around and picked up a whole big handful of screws. He brought them up and showed them to Mr. Roby and asked about it. And of course, Mr. Roby came upstairs and talked to us guys, all of us, got us all together.
Of course, you were just young.
We were just
kids,
young
really.
kids, yeah. He asked us about it, and asked who did it. We all admitted it, but two guys. Two guys said they didn't do it. So we all got a week's vacation for that.
Yeah, including the two guys?
No, the two guys that said they didn't do it, they got to stay.
Yeah. They were guilty also.
Well, they did it too.
Yeah.
But they said they didn't, so they didn't. They got to stay.
Did they stay with Honeywell?
They eventually they all scattered out.
Yeah.
There. Well, one of them went to Detroit. And I don't remember what happened to the other one.
Were you married then, George?
She don't remember whether it was or not.
What year did you get married?
I've been married twice.
Yeah. Well, the
first
first
one
time.
we don't talk about.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then how about the shop? Then did Mickey McDaniel's up there?
Oh, Mickey! I don't remember Mickey then, but I do remember Mickey being in the purchasing department. But I don't remember him at that time. I didn't know too many people in the purchasing department at that time.
Yeah. He came down, from the original shop on the side of the hill.
Yeah.
I'll tell you in person now that might ring a bell with you. Was this Houston Woods,
I don't remember.
who helped in the purchasing and then did some of the engineering.
Oh, Woods, yeah, you remember that Woods. I didn't remember what his first name was. Yeah, I remember Woods working in person. Yeah.
He told me that he ran from the third floor in the department down to engineering in the second floor and then down to receiving in the basement. He circulated between three floors and finally left in 1934.
I remember the name Woods, and I remember there was a Woods work there, but I didn't remember him too much because I was out in the factory and I didn't remember him too much.
Well, the Depression is coming on. And what's old George do then?
During the Depression, I got laid off during the Depression. I don't remember. I was working in the machine shop, I believe, at that time. I've been every place.
Yeah.
I believe I was working in a machine shop at that time, and business got real bad, and I was laid off long in the summertime sometime. I was only 32, I believe it was, somewhere along in there.
Yeah.
And somewhere or other, Detroit was wanting someone up there in the office for that winter during the heating system. So I don't know how I got a hold of it, but someone told me about it, and I wrote to the man. And I then in that winter, then in October, I believe it was, I went to Detroit, and I worked up there at the Detroit office all winter, up until must have been latter part of January, 1st of February, or sometime or other. Well, then I came back down to Wabash, and I went back down to the plant again.
Yeah. But they still had a job for you here.
Yeah, as soon as I got back, Harry Kuntz was still there, and as soon as I got back, I saw him, and he wanted me to come back to work, so I did.
Yeah.
So I was out of work for, maybe 3 or 4 months during the summertime that summer.
Yeah. Did you have a hard time making ends meet, or?
Well, no, I don't think we had too much trouble. We got along pretty good.
Yeah. When you came back, then what kind of a job did they have waiting for you?
Well, I was in the test department again. I'm back in inspection and test. I'm not part of the test lab. We were testing a water circulator, if I remember that time. We were just starting to make a water circulator.
Yeah.
So I was help check the operations of that.
Yeah. Was Mr. Honeywell in evidence by this time?
Yeah,
to you
I
know?
was around long about that time. Yeah, I remember seeing him and talking to him occasionally long about then. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of a person did you find him in those days?
He was a real swell person. He was really a nice man. And seems like once he knew you, he never forgot who you were.
Yeah.
And he would go through the shop, and he would speak to you, and he'd call you by name.
Yeah.
And there was any number of people that he knew their name. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised long about that time that he didn't know everyone in the plant by their name, knew who they were, and knew what their name was.
Yeah. Would he come and watch you work, or find out what
Not
you're
that
doing?
he might come over and say something to you, but he never paid much attention to what you were doing. He never watched you. He never stood over you or anything like that. Not that I remember of at all.
Yeah.
He would walk past, and he may speak to you and say something to you, but he never bothered you with your work, never complained, never said anything about it even.
Yeah. Howard Roby was still a plant manager at this time?
No, Roby had left long about the time of the merger.
Uh-huh.
He went to Minneapolis long about the time of the merger.
Yeah. And who was running
Kuntz was
running the plant then?
running the plant then, and Shivers was long.
Yeah. Well,
Shivers.
he'd be
That's long
along.
about the time Shivers was manager of the plant.
Yeah. Did you just work full time then all through the rest of the Depression, or did you?
Yeah.
You didn't
I
get
wasn't laid off anymore.
cut at all?
No.
3 days or?
No.
Five?
Oh, there was different times during the Depression. We worked. We would work maybe 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And we worked 6 hours a day, if I remember right, on several of those weeks.
But you were never really hard up for money or anything?
No, we got along all right.
Yeah.
Sure, he was hard up maybe a little bit.
Just like today.
Yeah, you're always hard up.
Yeah.
Never have enough.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Then what did you do in the shop after the things started picking up again?
Oh, golly. I believe after we got a little busier, I went back into the machine shop. And I worked in the machine shop for several years. And I worked in the finishing department for, I don't know, a few years. I worked in the inspection department. I worked on maintenance department.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember when it was I went to the office. I worked in the office part-time for a while. Then I went there full-time.
This was before World War II?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, after World War II. Because World War II, I was in the inspection department again.
Yeah.
I drifted back and forth between one and the other. When they had something that anybody else wanted to do, I got the job.
Yeah.
Seemed like.
Do you remember any outstanding problems or anything they were having during that period relative to goods that they were making, products manufactured?
No.
Yeah.
No big problems. No, we never had no big problems.
Yeah.
We whipped them.
Yeah.
I know long about that time, we tried to put out a quality product, and all the people, in my memory, tried to do a good job. And we didn't have somebody standing with a back of your neck all the time inspecting it and rejecting it. We tried to do a good job.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever conscious of management's concerned relative to money or lack of money? Or,
No.
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 In other words,
Well, of course, they never had them. You could never get a raise because they didn't have any money to pay you with. I mean, that was
Yeah.
always, that's general law.
yeah. Was there a union those days?
No.
No union. No company union?
Well, we had
Captain.
there was I don't remember what year it was. There was a company union.
No.
I know I always think I was partly responsible for the company union.
Why?
I was on salary at that time, and I couldn't belong to the union, and I couldn't say anything about the union.
Mm-hmm.
Only, if someone asks you about it, you more or less give your halfway opinion on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't allowed to instigate a union or anything like that. Of course, the company union was what we preferred. The company preferred it, and I'm sure that most of the employees did because they didn't want a national union in there at that time.
Mm-hmm. You were on salary, but
Yeah.
if an hourly employee would mention it to you,
Well, we would never say anything against it. No,
Yeah,
we would
yeah.
say maybe it would sound like a pretty good idea to me or something like that. We
Yeah.
would kind of encourage them to go ahead. We wouldn't say anything against it.
was that from the boss, or that was something that you...
No, that was more or less on our own initiative. I know most of the fellows would have felt the same way about it. They would much rather have a company union in than they would an outside union.
Yeah. Did you feel that you were getting adequate pay in those days?
I had no complaints.
Yeah. How about vacation and things of that nature?
Well, I wasn't complaining. I
Yeah.
didn't complain about anything. I thought we were being very fairly treated.
Yeah.
And even when we had the company union in the end there, I thought we always got real fair treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Real fair. Because when Minneapolis had their union in up there and they would get anything at all, Wabash always got exactly what they did. Sometimes a little better.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any complaint for
Yeah.
salaries or wages or anything that way.
Did you
Not a big
participate in any activities outside the plant in those days, in athletics or mini regs or any of those affairs?
I was chairman of the men regs two times, I think it was. I held several different offices in the men regs,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to have some real nice parties.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, but we
Yeah.
had some nice parties.
Did you, did they meet uptown any place in those days when you would have been able?
Yes, we did. At one time, we used to meet out at the Women's Club a lot of times.
Uh-huh.
But ordinarily, before we would go to a men reg meeting, we used to go meet at one of the bars downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to meet there at what used to be the old Union Bar, which is now the Red Rooster or something like that.
Rooster Tail. Yeah.
I know one time when the manager of the place was getting too many slugs in his slot machine. Probably someone else has told you the same thing.
No, I never heard this.
They were getting slugs in their slot machines, and the manager of the bar there said he knew who put the slugs in. He knew where they were coming from, but he couldn't complain about it because this fellow spent too much money over there. So they'd pay in slugs.
Yeah.
And of course, the guys who were putting them in wouldn't say anything about it. They just put them back in again.
Yeah.
But we used to always, before Menreg meeting, we would meet at one of the bars in town,
Yeah.
and we'd about take the place over until we went to Menreg meeting.
Yeah.
Of course, we went out to Women's Club. There was no drinking out there.
Yeah.
So after it was all with, we'd usually find them all back downtown again.
Yeah. Did they have dances and picnics and that?
We had dances and picnics. We had several real nice dances, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of the athletic events that they used to have?
Well,
Baseball team?
way back in the very beginning, we used to have one before the merger was. We had, I don't know, 3 or 4 plants. Each plant had a baseball team,
Yeah.
a softball team, and we used to play down there on South Wabash Street, right there where Ernie's Restaurant is now, right in there, and where the Farm Bureau's got all that equipment in there.
Mhm.
It used to be a big place in there. We used to play baseball in there about every night.
Yeah. Did you play?
Yeah.
Was that softball or
Softball, it was softball. That was that great big softball.
with the out seam, not the
yeah,
inseam?
yeah,
with
we
the
had
out
those
seam.
great big, when the very first beginning of it.
Yeah.
We used to have pretty wild games down there.
Yeah. Had a lot of fun.
Oh, we had a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd go up and have a cool one afterwards.
Yeah, we usually did. No, we used to always, have a lot of fun. You couldn't bunt the ball then.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't bunt, but you could hit it real soft. It did dribble out across the inner field, but you weren't allowed to really bunt. So you had to swing, but you didn't have to swing very hard.
Who were some of the good players back in those days?
Oh golly, old Bus Martin played on one team. He didn't play on our team though.
Howard Smith, did he play?
Howard Smith played, I believe,
Yeah.
and Vice played. Jim Vice played.
Yeah. He a good athlete?
He's pretty good. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I know that was when we were down on Miami Street,
Uh-huh.
and Vice played with us guys. And we needed a first baseman, and we were upstairs, and down the bottom on the second floor we had a machine shop, automatic screw machine shop.
Uh-huh.
The foreman down there was a little Englishman. His name was Taylor, and we needed a first baseman. He was the manager of the team, so he went down around Converse or someplace and hired a kid to play first baseman for us. He was. We didn't have anything for him to do, really, but we needed a first baseman. So he went out and hired this kid to play first baseman for us. We had a pretty good team.
Yeah. Had a lot of fun, I'll bet.
Oh, we had a lot of fun, yeah.
Do you think that's possible today? I mean,
No, I don't think it is.
what would you say the reason is today?
The guys are not that close anymore.
Yeah.
We were all close together. We were not battling each other for each other's job, and we weren't jealous if somebody got a penny or two more on the hour than we got.
Mm-hmm.
We never even thought of it that way. We were all friends. We all played together, and we're just one big happy family. We would have fought for each other. I expect we'd had to.
Yeah. Did Mr. Honeywell take an interest in your activities? Or
I don't remember him.
Coming to the games? Or
I don't remember whether he
mentioning
came to
it?
the games or not. I don't know. I don't remember that. No. Undoubtedly he did, because all of his factories were playing in those games. And
Did what did you do when you went to the office to work?
I was in the production control department.
And who was the overall boss in that?
Doc Leland, I think it was Doris Leland.
Yeah.
Well, he was a superintendent at the time. I think he was the head of it. Pretty sure he was, yeah.
Have you seen him lately?
No, I haven't seen him for several months.
I called him and asked him for an interview like we're doing now, and
Yeah.
he said his back was bothering him too much to sit tight and do something of this nature.
He's kind of a queer person, Doc Lee.
Yeah,
Queer.
unusual,
Yeah.
different, let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
a little different than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, when war came along and you were still in production control or inspection?
When the war first started, I was in production then. I was in charge of the finishing department.
Did the plant grow?
By leaps and bounds. I mean, you just never knew who was coming in next. I mean,
Yeah.
so many people around there, you couldn't keep track of all of them.
And what were they turning out in those days?
And we were making periscopes and sighting devices. Okay.
Yeah.
But I was in the finishing department at that time when the workforce first started. But then they decided they need somebody back in inspection again. So I went back to inspection.
Any particular problems that they had in those days?
When I was inspection in the machine shop, of course I had a little experience in machine work. And I went back in the machine shop in inspection. And I was there practically all during the war.
Was Augie Rump back in the machine
Yeah,
shop?
Augie was in the machine shop at that time. Augie and Fred Ellis and there's so many people I don't remember all of, but some of the older ones I remember. But they came and went by the Phil Eskew at one time was in the inspection. He worked for me in the inspection department there at Honeywell at one time. So did John Tatum.
What, just ordinary laborers after hours at school
during
and summers?
summer when school was on,
Yeah.
No, I'll never will forget Phil Eskew came in there. Of course, his name was Eskew, Phil Eskew. And we got several tickets around there that was signed with just an S and a Q.
Yeah.
And everybody running around there, who in the world was initials with SQ? We was trying to figure out somebody's initials with SQ. And Finally, somebody asked him about what, and he said, "Well, me, you dope."
What was the acceptance of Phil and people like that in the summer that during the war?
They were all right.
Yeah.
People accepted them. They were all right. They never anybody held it against them because they were a teacher or anything. They never even thought anything about it.
Yeah. Probably a lot of their pupils were down there also.
Could have been something.
Yeah. Well, when the war was over, what did you do?
Well, when the war was over, then I went back. I went into the office, and I think I was there about the time I went into the office. I went into the office before the war was over.
And back into production control?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this would take you out of any normal union activities
Yeah.
or anything of that type, since you would...
Well, I was a foreman or assistant foreman or for several years in there that I didn't have anything to do with the union. I never belonged to the union.
Yeah.
So I was never connected with the union in any way.
How about when the national union came in?
I was helped on the election board that time.
Yeah. You were helping on the election itself?
Yeah, helping on the
But
election.
not voting or...
No.
Yeah.
I was on salary then. I couldn't belong, couldn't even vote or anything.
Was there anything from management itself to do anything at all, one way or the other, or to keep quiet or nothing?
Keep everything perfectly legal.
Yeah.
As near not say anything or do anything would get anything messed up. We were neutral.
Yeah. Did you think the national union would come in at that time?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, well, in my job, I was all over the factory at different times, and you're bound to hear people say things, and people are bound to say things to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that it would, yeah.
Do you think things changed after the national came in?
I ain't gonna answer that.
No.
Undoubtedly they did. They had to.
Yeah. Well, about the move then? You were in on the move when they moved out to Bond Street?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did everyone think that this was making a permanent installation, or what was the feeling at the inside at that time?
I'd say more or less people thought that was the beginning of the end when we moved to Bond Street.
Yeah.
We didn't have too much left at that time.
Yeah. And were you pretty well informed as a foreman and part of the management group? Were you informed as to what was going on, or were you as much in the dark as the employees were?
Well, no, not exactly, but we didn't know everything.
Yeah. Did you think at any time that the place was going to close, or?
Well, you're bound to have that suspicion in your mind. You can't help it.
Yeah.
You don't have nothing to base it on, but you have a feeling that it looked very much like the beginning and the end, and I'm sure that everyone felt the same way.
Yeah. Huh. Was Mr. Honeywell still active after the war and that, or?
No, I don't believe he. Yeah, right after the war he was. Yeah, he was for a while there. But I don't. When we moved out to Bond Street, I don't believe he was any place around there.
But were you ever called in to give any time or anything to the Honeywell building and the Honeywell Center or his projects at the Country Club?
Not to the center. I worked one time for about, must have been 3 or 4 weeks on some stone that they were building. They were building that, some of those buildings out there are some native stone.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that old yellow stone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no two rocks that look exactly alike. And I expect I spent 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe longer, trying to find something or other that we could put on those rocks to make them all look alike.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know how many different paint companies I had in here. Representatives come in, and we had samples of rock laying all over the place down there. Was something that we could spray on those rocks after they got the building all done to make them all look exactly the same. We finally gave up on the project. There was nothing we could put on them to make them all look exactly alike.
Huh.
We finally gave up.
You're going to change nature then, huh?
We couldn't do it.
Was this Mr. Honeywell's project?
That was his personal project, yes, sir.
And you'd be down there then trying to figure out how to do it and so forth.
Well, I'd check with these paint companies. They'd send a sample of something in, and I would try it, and it didn't work. And of course, he was always in on all of it too. He saw them all, and now that wasn't what he wanted.
Who was the purchasing agent back in those days?
I believe McDaniels was at that time.
Was he in on the act too? I would assume.
Well, to a certain extent, yeah. But all his connection was to get hold of the paint company and have them send a representative in. It was about the only connection he had.
Did this seem to frustrate Mr. Honeywell?
No, not really. No, he didn't get it that way. I mean, no. No,
He accepted the
he
fact.
accepted the fact that it was impossible. I mean, after I had tried for so many times, he finally gave in. That was right.
Yeah.
Couldn't be done.
Yeah.
You had to prove it to him, though. You had to show it to him.
Yeah.
But after you give him the facts, that was all there was to it.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Mhm. Were you laboring under pressure, or you?
Oh, no. He wasn't one to pressure you. No, he
Mhm.
didn't pressure you.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd bring different items down there to be fixed. I know probably Bus Martin told you that. He'd bring some of the craziest things in for old Bus to fix up that you ever saw in your life. And it'd cost 3 or 4 times what they were worth to get the things repaired and fixed so they'd work. But that was nothing unusual. We were doing things. I know one time he brought a couple of refrigerators down there to be painted, which was old, used refrigerators. I don't know where he got them. One painted, one painted white. Well, that took a lot of time to have those all sanded down and put 2 or 3 coats of dew cool on them and sand it down and polish it. But when he got all done, it was just exactly what he wanted them. And there was no complaints and no question about what they cost. He never asked that. How many hours you put in on them.
Did you, when you were doing this paint business, was this just regular straight time at the company and not overtime or weekends?
No, right on, right during working hours. We didn't take no overtime.
Yeah.
We just stopped what we were doing and do it.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Yeah. Was Marvel Walrod much in evidence back in those
Oh, yeah. Marvel was really a nice lady.
Yeah.
I always thought a lot of Marvel. I know when they first start the state income tax, gross income tax here in Indiana, I never will forget that. I had worked and I'd only made just barely enough to pay income. I think I owed the state 2 or 3 pennies.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time you had to have the papers notarized. And that cost you a quarter or 50 cents. So Marvel said she would do mine for me. So I went down one Saturday morning and she made out my income tax for me. And we took the 2 or 3 pennies that I owed out of the company safe. We taped them onto the form, and she notarized it. And we took a company envelope, and she put the stamp from the company on there, and we sent them in.
So it never cost you a cent?
Never. And the first time I paid my income tax didn't cost me anything.
I'll be
My
darned.
gross income tax.
Yeah. Who are some of the others that you remember over the years that you enjoyed working with? And
Oh,
maybe I should ask you the ones you didn't enjoy working with.
Don't put me on the spot. Well, there's 2 or 3 people I didn't enjoy working with.
Did they last all your 45 years?
No,
Yeah.
they didn't last. But I wouldn't name any names.
No. How about the ones you enjoyed working with?
Oh, I enjoyed working with most people. I get along with most any people,
Mhm.
anybody. But I don't like people to tell lies about me, and several times I found people did.
Mm-hmm. In respect to what?
Well, about your work or something like that, or something you had supposed to have said that you didn't say. I know one time I told a guy about it, I caught the 2 of them together. I just happened to be 2 or 3 steps away from him when I heard this one guy make a statement that I had supposed to have said,
Mm-hmm.
and I just walked up and told him to repeat it. Of course, he wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Did you think that you worked there 45 years?
Yeah.
Did you think that someday there would be retirement and everything, George? Or you?
Not when I first started. That was the least of my thoughts. I had never given it a thought then.
Mm-hmm. And when you got toward the retirement time, what were your thoughts?
Well, I thought that would be real nice then.
Yeah. Do you feel that the retirement and everything is adequate?
Well, I think it should be about 3 or 4 times as much as it is, but It's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, considering the time that you put in and...
Since I didn't put anything into it at all, I think it's very generous. I didn't put a dime in it.
Yeah.
So I can't complain about that.
With Social Security and your Honeywell pension, are you able to live
We get along.
comfortably?
Sure, we get along.
Yeah. Of course, at your age and retirement age, I should say, your wants are more modest than they would be when you're raising a family or buying a home or something of that nature.
Hmm.
How do you occupy your time now that you are retired?
Oh, I have a little shop out home that I mess around. Right now, I'm making a Martin house for one of the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
In my spare time.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't have much spare time.
Yeah. What is your...
Raise a little garden.
Mhm.
Keep the yard halfway decent.
Mhm.
Fish, just fiddle around. Go fishing when I get time.
Does your lifestyle change much? I mean, you get up different times now? And...
No, I get up about the same every day.
Uh-huh.
I kind of got in the habit, I guess.
Mhm.
My dad always told me that you should get up early so you'd have longer to loaf.
Yeah.
If you didn't have anything to do, get up early and you'd have longer to loaf.
Yeah.
And I don't, I'm not for that very reason, but I see no point in laying in bed until noon and
Mhm.
then staying up half the night. I don't see any reason to do that.
Yeah. Is your health generally pretty good, George?
Yeah, real good. All except my legs. Of course, I have poor circulation in my legs, and I can't walk very far, which kind of irritates the
Yeah.
heck out of
That's
me.
just age, probably.
Yeah, well, it's been coming on, I guess.
Yeah.
Can't keep away from it.
Yeah.
Nothing they can do. There's no cure for it, so I have to live with it.
Does time ever hang heavy on your hands now that you retire?
Oh, not necessarily so. I mean, in the wintertime, sometimes you get a little days, you get kind of irritated because you can't get outside and there's nothing to do on the inside, and sometimes you get a little irritated at times, but ordinarily no.
Mm-hmm.
I do a little reading. Well, I have some leather equipment. I mess around with a little bit of leather work once in a while. Of course, you do that in the house on bad days.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back. Is there anything outstanding or unusual that you would say that your Honeywell career had? You just got up and went to work every day and got home every night and was happy to drop hay? Or...
No. I enjoyed working there all the years I worked there. And I believe that ordinarily that I was very fairly treated. I don't think I was mistreated or any way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes at different occasions you think maybe you have been mistreated, but all in all, I believe I've done pretty good. I don't think they browbeat me too much. Of course, there's lots of times when you have an idea about something, you think you should do something this way or that way, and you're told that it's no good, that it won't work and all that, but maybe a week or 2 weeks later that somebody comes back and has a brand new idea that's just exactly the one you had told them in the first place.
Uh-huh.
That kind of irritates you at times, but sooner or later you find a way to work around behind that,
Yeah.
and you don't have that problem anymore.
I found that all of the retired Honeywell employees and the ones that are still working, that generally, I would say without exception, that every one of them was happy in their job and felt that they were, with the exception of one man, were adequately compensated and are enjoying retirement.
Well, I
And-
have no complaints at all.
No.
I think I done fairly good.
Sure.
I don't know where I could have done any better.
Yeah.
I had several jobs offered me during the time I was there.
Yeah.
And one job I kind of questioned whether I'd done the right thing or not. But maybe I did. I don't know.
Going back, Ku Klux Klan was strong through here in the 20s, and I always ask everyone the same question. Let me see, you were born in 1906, you would have been about 21 years old. Did you join?
No, I never belonged to Klan. I don't believe I was ever approached.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever.
Maybe they thought you were too young.
Maybe they did.
Yeah.
No, I never had anything to do with the Klan. I remember that it had been off and on. It just reoccurs every so many years.
Mhm.
But I don't know of any time that I ever belonged. I remember when it was quite active around here at one time.
Do you remember the Depression years, really?
Yeah. Remember when things were pretty tight along in there? Yeah, it was pretty long. Now, when I was off there for a little while, and I went to Detroit, but I come back and went back to work again. So really, I don't know too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was times when a lot of people didn't have enough to eat. I do know that.
But you yourself, as we've talked about before, why,
We never had-
you just rolled right along.
We never had too much problems. No, we got along pretty good.
Did you have a family, George, raised family?
I have one girl.
Yeah.
And she graduated from school just last Saturday, high school.
At Southwood.
Mm-hmm. And now she goes tonight. She goes out here and gets her diploma from vocational school.
Great.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's looking for a job.
She's looking for a
She's
job.
looking for a job.
Yeah, and she was in
In the office.
Secretary
The office
training,
training section, yeah.
Good.
I've been trying to get her to go out to shop. I know there's no jobs out there open now. I've been trying to get her to go out to the shop out there and see, put her application out there. But I don't want to do her any good, because I do know they're not hiring anybody out there in the office right now because they don't have any place to put the ones they got.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go out and put her application in anyway.
Have you been back to the shop since you retired?
And I've been back for, it's been a couple of months, I expect. 2 or 3 months since I've been out there.
Yeah. Do you always feel welcome when you go back?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I left out there, they gave me a permanent pass. All encased in plastic and all that, done up fancy.
Mm-hmm.
But I never used it. I wouldn't use it if I'd go out there. I would always go get permission.
Yeah.
But at least I have a permanent pass on it out there.
Well, that's a good idea. Yeah, it makes a guy feel like he's
Yeah,
part
it
of the
makes you
place.
feel good, yeah.
Sure.
Feel good, but
Yeah.
no, last time I was out there, I never did have any problems though.
Yeah.
Of course, I know Dick Prickett out there
Mhm.
real well. He grew up there at Honeywell. So
Mm-hmm.
just a kid, and he started work there. I've known Dick ever since he started down there.
Did you think Mr. Honeywell made a great impact on the community, or?
Well, I'm sure, in my own mind, I'm sure that Mr. Honeywell done a lot of things around here that no one knows anything about, that he didn't tell anybody, and no one knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the building down there is a wonderful building.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I go down there, I'm sorry that some of the things are the way they are, because I know he wouldn't want it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I was down there not too long ago, down in the skating rink,
Mm-hmm.
and that floor just, to me, looked terrible. And I know that he wouldn't have had that floor in that condition at all.
Mhm.
He'd have had, we had, when we had some kind of a party down there, vocational school had a party down there, and I went down there, and the floor was so dirty and black marks on it. Now, if he'd have been living, that floor would have been scrubbed
Mm-hmm.
before we ever went in there that evening for a meal.
Mhm.
I know that.
Do you think they should have named a street or a park or something for Mr. Honeywell
I don't
for the
think
contribution?
I don't think he'd want it that way. I don't believe he would.
Mhm.
No, I don't think he would have wanted it that way.
Yeah.
I know one time we had the Minrigs were having a big party. We were having a party, Minrig party,
Uh-huh.
down in the Indiana Hotel, down in the basement of the hotel down there. And we were having all the members and all their wives were there. And I just happened to be chairman of the Minrigs at that time. And he had told me 2 or 3 times when he came to a Minrig meeting, he was a member. His name didn't mean nothing, he was only a member. So we made no provisions for him at all that night. We had all the officers sitting up at the table, and I think we had a speaker or something like that. We had him up at the head table, but we made no provisions for Mr. Honeywell whatsoever.
Mhm.
I figured he was a member, he'd find his own place.
Yeah.
Well, the manager of the hotel didn't know Mr. Honeywell was coming. But when Mr. Honeywell did come in, he got all nervous and excited. He was going to set him up at the head table. I said, no. He's only a member. You set him where he said wherever he wants to, because he's just a member here tonight. And we had the meeting. They went all over and everything went all right. But you know, Mr. Honeywell came around to thank me for that afterwards.
He just wanted to be one of the boys.
He was just one of them. He was just a member that night, was all. That's all the way he wanted to be treated. And when he would go to a MNREG meeting, he would find anybody that would talk to him. And he may talk to him for an hour or two at a time if they'd sit and listen to him. He just wanted to be treated as a member. He didn't want anybody to give him any special consideration.
What would you say his outstanding characteristic was?
Oh, I don't know how you would classify it. I wouldn't know, really.
Which many people have said perfection. They
When
mean
he
it.
wanted, whenever he wanted anything, you did anything, and anybody did anything for him, it had to be perfect. I mean, there was no good enough. That didn't go at all. It either had to be perfect or he didn't want it at all.
Right.
And he made no bones about how much it cost him. He never once did I ever hear him say anything about what it cost.
Yeah.
How many hours did you spend on this? Or how many hours did it take you to do this? Never. He just wanted it the way he wanted it, and that was it.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't that way, he didn't want it. Well, you probably heard the tale about him having walls tore out down at the community building and rebuilt because he didn't like them. They weren't where he wanted them.
Did you ever see Mr. Honeywell get into an amusing situation, something that was humorous?
Well, yeah, one night at the MNREG party out at the country club out toward the lodge, the old lodge out there, we had a party out there, MNREG's did, and Mr. Honeywell was playing his violin for us and having more fun than anybody in the place. And even after you get through playing his violin, he was running around there. Him and this Marvin, the colored boy he had working for him, were running around there, waiting on tables, serving beer and stuff to people, to the following members. And he was having a lot of fun. And that's the way he wanted it.
Can you think of anything else? Do you know we've talked for over an hour?
No. Guess we have about
Yeah.
that. No, I don't think of anything else, really. I do know that when we moved Mr. Honeywell's office from over on Wabash Street over to the old plant where the plane dealer is now, Miss Walrod was moving Mr. Honeywell's personal office files over there. Well, I was working for maintenance, and I got in on it. But she wouldn't let anyone move any of his things, only me. I was the only one who could move anything that belonged to Mr. Honeywell. Any of his papers, any of his files, or anything. And if we put any files on a truck, I had to go with them and help him unload them, watch him unload them, and put them back in his office. And no one could touch him, only me, and I had to watch him. I was the guard.
Yeah, well, she put a lot of trust and confidence
Almost
in you.
while I was doing that, stayed on his line.
Incidentally, she's broken her arm, you know, and her sister took care of her sister-in-law, who subsequently died. I understood yesterday that she's out in Arizona again now, vacationing. So she'll be back shortly.
Yeah. She was a really nice lady.
I intend to be talking to her the same way I'm talking to you, and I'll tell her that you're in good health. Yeah, well, George, I want to thank you for this interview. As I say, we'll be getting copies to you, and you're now on tape, and your name will appear in the paper so that the historians and the important thing is, I think, that your daughter knows where this material is, so that she can pass it on to her children, so that they'll know where Grandpa is on tape and so forth, and that's the important thing. Thank you very much, and this is George Dingledye interview.